Welcome to the 2021 review of OSHA and WISHA training for Cedar Plaza Vet and Martha Lake Vet. Training goals. With this presentation, the goal is to introduce you to the safety protocols in place at our two practices. For the purpose of this presentation, we will follow 3 steps. Step 1. Identify the hazard. An example is formalin. Formalin is one of the most dangerous chemicals we handle at the clinics. Step 2. Prevent the hazard. There are many things we can do to prevent formalin-related accidents. A simple example is handling it very carefully. Step 3. What to do in case of exposure. If exposed to formalin, say eye exposure, we can start by using the eye wash station. Following these 3 steps, we will be briefly going over the different hazards and discuss what safety and training programs are in place. Before we get into details of each hazard, we will discuss some digital resources available to us. The OSHA WISHA Training Manual is our most comprehensive safety document. We will talk about this in the next slide. We maintain all of our OSHA WISHA resources digitally in the cloud. We use Dropbox, OneDrive, and Google Drive cloud services. Being on the cloud, the safety resources are available on all the connected computers all the time. Some examples of resources are the safety data sheets, in short SDS, mandated documents, accident report forms, the manual we just mentioned, and a lot more. Question for you at this time. Have you been trained and know how to use our cloud services? If your answer is no, talk to your supervisor ASAP. Finally, WhatsApp. We use WhatsApp to communicate as a team. A lot of important information is shared here. If you do not have access to WhatsApp or cannot download the app, talk to your supervisor. Let us talk a bit more about the OSHA WISHA Safety Manual. This is your most detailed safety information resource. The manual covers all the aspects of safety at our 2 locations. The manual is available on our cloud services, in your email, and is shared in WhatsApp. If you need a hard copy, we can print it at any time on request. We have 2 manuals, one for each location. While the content is very similar, they differ in some details. 1. List of the safety committee members at the specific clinic. 2. Where can you find safety items like the location of PPEs, first aid kit. All the differences in the manual are highlighted in a blue underlined font. This document is periodically updated with major or minor edits, and everyone is notified. On this slide, we will very briefly discuss different programs in place that may apply to many situations. We highly recommend that you read the details in the manual. These programs are divided into prevention protocols and post-exposure protocols. Prevention protocols in place are Accident Prevention Plan, Exposure Control Plan, Hazard Communication Program, Radiation Protection Program, Anesthesia Safety Program, Fire Prevention Plan, and Violence Prevention Written Plan. Post-exposure protocols are First Aid Program, Accident, Incident, or Injury Reporting Plan, and Emergency Action Plan. Again, we highly recommend that you read the details in the manual. Now, let us go over some of the common hazards. We will start with formalin. We briefly touched earlier in the presentation. It is the most hazardous chemical we handle in our practice. Formalin is carcinogenic and is a strong irritant. We use formalin to collect, preserve, and send tissue samples to the lab. You will find formalin in the lab supplies and the surgery suites in small containers. So, what can we do for prevention? Formalin should be handled by authorized personnel only. Careful handling is practiced with a very short exposure time. Luckily, the formal is in very small jars, making accidents less risky. We do not use formalin for large samples. Please do read and understand the formalin SDS formalin section and accident prevention plan in the manual. Despite all the care, accidents will happen. Formalin exposures can be due to spills or leaks, leading to ingestion, inhalation, skin contact, and/or eye contact. Based on the type of exposure, different tools and protocols are deployed. Next is isoflurane. Isoflurane is an inhalant gas we use for general anesthesia. Inhalant gas exposure is easily preventable with proper prevention plans and with a proper understanding of how the gas anesthetic system works. Most of the gas is stored in glass bottles and a small portion in a vaporizer. Prevention. Please go through Anesthesia Safety Program for details. In general, Gas induction using masks may lead to leaks and is not recommended. Chemical induction is much safer. A good understanding of anesthesia machine works and routines checks and maintenance helps to prevent leaks. When filling the vaporizers from glass bottles, handle the bottles carefully and always use the bottle with a funnel filler adapter. Here is an image of the adapter. Post-exposure plan. Exposure may be due to spills or leaks. Exposure may be due to inhalation, skin contact, and eye contact. Once the gas leaks or spills, preventing inhalation is hard, but we can reduce the amount of inhalation by increasing ventilation and proper implementation of spill controls. There is a dedicated section of anesthetic safety programs that goes over the detail.s. Next up is radiation safety. We have a dedicated section, Radiation Protection Program, in the manual. We have two types of machines at each clinic: the dental X-ray machine and the regular X-ray machine. The regular radiation machines are different at each clinic. Here are the pictures of the dental X-ray machine, one at each location, the regular X-ray machine at Cedar Plaza, and the regular X-ray machine at Martha Lake. Prevention. Prevention of unnecessary radiation exposure is very important. We use dosimeter to measure the dose of radiation exposure. You are not allowed to acquire X-rays without a dosimeter. Prevention also includes the use of chemical restraints when possible, use of protective gear, an appropriate announcement before each acquisition, collimation, positioning, and radiation settings. Exposure plan. Once exposed, there is no undoing the exposure. Emphasis on pre-exposure prevention plan and training is very important. The dosimeter's report will help tell us if an individual was exposed to unhealthy levels of radiation. Please read Radiation Protection Program for much more details. Next we will discuss bites and scratches. Bites are the #1 injury at our practices that required medical attention. Here is our data in the last 5 years. 11 out of the 13 injuries requiring medical attention were bites. The other 2 were a sharp injury and a client hitting head on the counter. So, prevention. With each situation, the prevention plan may vary. In some cases, teamwork is very important. In others, using sedation or similar tools will help. Occasionally, delegating to experienced staff helps. In general, if you understand patient handling, body language, and stress-free handling, the chances of injury will go down significantly. Exposure plan. If an accident does happen, you should get a first aid and go to a physician if required. We require you to fill an injury report form, and likely a workplace injury report form at your physician's office. We do review each incident closely and review our training protocols in place to reduce injuries. This slide concludes this presentation. In conclusion, I would like to emphasize these 3 points. Number 1. Workplace safety is very important. Do not overlook your or others' safety. Number 2. Use the safety resources to learn and teach. We have a lot of resources available to us. Use them. And number 3. Go through the safety manual to complete your safety training. Finally, if you have questions, feel free to reach your supervisor or the management. Thank you for listening.